Okay, let's try that again. I wasn't able to see my comments for some reason, so I just started that over. So talking about uncertainty and letting go and what gets in the way of people being able to let go, and often it is the experience of uncertainty. So if you're listening and you have some experiences that you can share with us, I would love to hear about how you have gotten through or found clarity during uncertain times. And something that I want to share is that I notice when people are uncertain about something that they are going between two states, which is, should I stay or should I go? And they're doing this kind of pendulum swing between should I stay or should I go? And the staying part of uncertainty often involves a state of passivity or kind of taking things as they are. We're saying that we're accepting, but it often more looks like we are biting our tongue. We're not asserting ourselves. We're accepting the status quo. We are usually complaining when we're in a situation like that. We're not really completely satisfied, but we're kind of saying that we just have to kind of suffer through it. So that tends to be the thought, the line of thinking when people are talking about staying in a situation where they're uncertain. And then the other side of uncertainty often includes the idea of moving on or leaving, whether that's a job or whether that's a relationship. It often involves letting go. And when people are thinking about letting go, they're thinking about ending the relationship, quitting their job, finding a new job. And so what I find is that people tend to go back and forth between should I stay or should I go, not recognizing that both of those states are extreme and they're also imbalanced. So and it will keep you in this kind of like pendulum place of like thinking about should I stay and all the feelings about staying, and thinking about should I go and all the feelings about going. And it would force somebody to make a decision that is a little bit polarized, like maybe an impulsive decision, or a decision that wasn't really aligned or thought out, that would have to be, if put through, would probably be a pretty impulsive one. And it would actually, I think the key about a decision that would arise from this state of imbalance is the decision would feel, it would feel like a knee-jerk experience, kind of like the idea of ripping a Band-Aid off. It would feel kind of like conflicted and wrought with tension. Hey, Natasha. So there's some like mental health providers that are here, so I would definitely love to hear your experiences about working with people, or even your own experiences around uncertainty. So I was talking about this pendulum swing that people go between should I stay or should I go, and how that creates this bifurcation in the mind where we're constantly oscillating between two extreme outcomes of a situation, staying and going, staying and going. And when we do that, we miss out on the balanced and also probably more realistic and natural next step to deal with the situation. So when we're going back and forth between should I stay or should I go, we're thinking about our behaviors often on that level. We're thinking almost mostly in terms of our behaviors. Should I stay at this job? Should I stay in this relationship? Or should I leave this job? Or should I break up with this person and end this relationship? So we're thinking about it almost on a very behavioral level. And so when we start to walk in this dynamic, we're walking in towards balance. I ask people to think about walking in from the behavior to the thoughts. And when they come to the thoughts, then the pendulum starts to swing a little bit less, but you're thinking about these thoughts of, oh, what happens if I leave? And am I going to jump from the fish to the frying pan to the fire? And then if I stay, am I going to be happy in this for the rest of my life? And what if this is always like this? And then all the judgments come in. And so also when we're staying in this thought, or we're staying in the behavior level, we're never really getting into the actual heart of the conflict. So I use that word because whenever there is uncertainty, there is also a conflict. And the conflict, we mistake that the conflict exists outside of us, but the conflict is actually almost always within ourselves. And if we're thinking about ourselves only on the level of behavior and thoughts, we're only thinking about ourselves as almost a shell of a person or as an external manifestation of ourselves. But when we walk that in and we acknowledge the conflict that exists within us, which is the conflict probably between different emotional states. You know, there might be some, satisfaction that you have in the situation that you're in. There might be some contentment. There might be some familiarity. But there also might be some discontentment and some discomfort and some dis-ease. And then if you think about the emotions that you have about leaving the situation, it's really tough because you haven't left the situation yet to really know what it would be like. So that's why finding the balance during times of uncertainty might involve a little bit of both letting go as well as fully engaging in your present situation. In a way that you are trying, or you're showing up fully, you're showing up authentically, and you're also setting boundaries. What is it that you want and don't want? What is it that you want to do and don't do? Both in jobs as well in relationships, people that are staying in a situation that is not satisfactory to them are also not showing up authentically, and they've convinced themselves that they can't, or they couldn't, or it wouldn't be worth it for them to show up authentically and fully engage in the situation. And then they start almost fantasizing about how things would be different if they left. And so both of those places are not only not showing up authentically, but it makes us delude ourselves into thinking that what isn't here or what we don't have is going to be better. And so when we figure out the balance here, it's about fully engaging in the situation that you're in. And fully engaging means showing up authentically in your words, in your actions, and what you say and what you think. And if you recognize that, your current situation is probably going to shift a little bit, either more towards what you want, or you're going to get clarity about that it's not what you want. And the clarity is going to come by being able to sense how you feel about the situation when you fully engage. And I really love the I think Cesar said in the comments that I had about this that, making a list, and you can always make lists, you can always weigh out the pros and cons, but all of these are mental exercises. And there is often, with uncertainty, there's never a right answer. And so the answer has to come by being able to connect first to your emotions and being able to find the balance. So once you do a little bit of both, engaging fully in your present situation, even if you're thinking about leaving it, while at the same time acknowledging that there's probably things that you need to let go of. And I noticed that when people need to let go of things, there are things that they're fearing that they will have to let go of that in some ways have already left. So for example, if someone leaving a job is wondering, oh my God, well, what if I'm afraid that if I leave this job, then I won't be happy in the next job that I'm in. Well, if you're already not happy in the present job that you're in, you're not really losing anything by taking a risk and finding another job that you also won't be unhappy in. You're already unhappy. And so the more likely scenario is that if you listen to yourself, you're going to find a next step that is towards more of your fulfillment and more of your happiness. But that next step has to come by being able to first engage fully in the present situation while also letting go. So it doesn't mean that you leave your job or you leave your relationship, but it means that you let go of the things that are no longer there anymore or that are not what you think that they are. And so another word that I often hear people refer to when we talk about letting go is acceptance. There is in letting go, another way to say that is to fully accept the situation as it is. And acceptance is also the final stage of grief. And so when we think about letting go, we can also think of it as a grieving process. It's a process that we often feel similarly as grief. We feel guilty about at the beginning, and we feel attached to. Guilt and attachment are part of a grieving process. And so the really cool thing, though, about allowing yourself to let go, again, in any way that is aligned with fully accepting the situation, allowing yourself to let go also means that what you're going to experience probably after you let go is an acceptance of something that is new or different than what you had before. It's going to your situation is going to transform. You are going to transform. And for those of you that have worked with people in a grieving process, you might have seen that when somebody grieves the loss of a person, often when they fully accept that the person is gone, they also start to, shortly thereafter, get reminders and start to see like messages or symbols or reminders of that person's life. So it's after the grieving process happens that someone can really start to experience the connection to that person that is gone. And so isn't that interesting that often I find that people cannot experience, an example of grieving and connection is the idea of people having dreams of the person that is deceased. And I've heard people say like, oh, someone in my family is like, they said they're having dreams about, their grandparent that passed away. And I really wish that I was, could have that connection. And, this other person said that, they see this reminder of this person and other family members, and they feel like this person's talking to them sometimes. And they're like, I wish I had that connection. So I often think that the people that when we can't experience that connection is often because we have not fully let go or accepted the loss. So I just want to say that part of finding the balance in uncertainty is not only fully engaging in your present situation, the one that you're thinking about leaving, but it's also about letting go and allowing yourself to let go of the emotional experiences that are no longer here. And the emotions of letting go are often beginning with anger and sadness, and those are tough. But just like with grief, you will find that if you really allow yourself to be with that emotion, that anger and that sadness, that those emotions will dissolve and they will become something else. And often, sadness will, in the end, result in a sense of acceptance, a sense of forgiveness, a sense of peace. And these are such different emotions, and they feel a little bit lighter. And so as I'm talking about grief and the emotions that we go through when we let go or when we grieve something, these are also the same emotions that we would have when we go through a change process. And so if you're facing a situation right now where you are wondering if you're having to let go of something, or you're feeling uncertain, and you're noticing that you're feeling attached, it might just be that this is a change that is trying to come through in your life. And you don't have to focus on it as like, should I stay or should I go? But by finding the balance between engaging fully and letting go and accepting, you will be able to ride the wave of this transition. So, would love to hear how these practices go for you. And I guess I would just lastly share that in finding the balance of asserting, engaging, boundary setting, and letting go, which is the middle place between this, should I stay or should I go? Finding the middle and the balanced place between that you have to really sit in stillness. And that's when I see people talking about how important it is to, connect to nature or to pray or to get it, like talk to friends who have gone through the same thing. But it's really like balancing out that pendulum swing of, should I stay or should I go? Yes or no, hot, cold. When you get in the middle, in the balance of that, you're going to find an emotional experience that is less swinging, that is more balanced. Maybe the pendulum looks like this instead of looking like this. And when the pendulum starts to look like this, so it's just going like back and forth, it's maybe going between these emotions of like, like curiosity and nervousness, uncertainty, doubt. And it's also like, you might notice that like contentment might be there or peace might be there. So you'll feel more balanced emotions rather than the ideal of I'm so happy that I'm, deluding myself that this relationship is and this job is everything that I wanted. Or you're deluding yourself the other way, which is that I'm totally miserable here. Neither of those things are actually often the true state. We're experiencing a extreme emotion because we're denying part of our experience. So when we allow ourselves to hold the full depth and the full breadth of our emotional experience, our experience is going to become more balanced and more centered. And it is in that center that we can really connect to spirit. And it is the spirit that I think really gives us the clarity that we can't find when we're out here going from one extreme to the other. So I got some yeses to that. And I would love to hear anybody share about what they've noticed and how they connect to spirit. I've heard nature, I've heard prayer, Minister Jazz also said tarot cards. So I really think that this is a place where people have a hard time because they won't allow themselves to sit still in order to get to that place where they get the clarity. And so I would really like to hear from people about how have you found the strength or the courage to be able to sit still amidst uncertainty, to be able to receive that clarity, whether it's sitting still, whether it's finding space. I would love to hear how people have figured that out and what they do to get there, because I definitely know that even for myself, that it's hard. And that the tendency is to really try to stick in your mind and try to figure it out that way where none of the answers come. So thank you guys for joining me. Tomorrow I'm going to be teaching RAIN at our meditation group. So if you're in Washington, D.C., check out me and Hawa tomorrow. And RAIN is a great practice. It was developed by a senior Vipassana teacher. And it's specifically a good practice in helping navigate through difficult situations and particularly difficult emotions. So would definitely love to hear and to see you tomorrow if you guys are in DC. And I like this. Michelle, you share that you get clear message immediately, but your discernment is on the fleek. Yeah. And so I guess like that's a really good point, because I would really love to talk more about this idea about the difference between emotion and intuition. So Michelle, I wonder if experiencing is the difference between something that is intuitive, which might be more of the thing that stays, it's a little bit more steady, as opposed to what is emotional that might seem like something that comes up, but it may not be it might be more of the reaction rather than what's actually really at the centered place. So definitely would love to hear your thoughts on that, and about what you think the clear message is when that comes up between. So I see that my connection is getting a little unstable and empathy too. Oh yeah. For sure, for sure. So I'm hearing, Michelle, you mentioned the part about empathy, and that's really, I think that empathy is a really great part, because what keeps us in this pendulum swing is often judgment. And when we are judging ourselves, we're often in thought. We're not present when we're in judgment. We're usually like in the past or in the future. And we're almost always 100% of the time when we're judging, we're stuck in our heads. We're in thinking mode and not in actual feeling mode. So I love the idea of empathy, because it's recognizing that, and kind of having empathy for yourself, but also being able to connect to the empathy that probably exists from others that go through this, the same experience, and that anytime you're going through something, there's also others that are going through the same thing. So, hey Jen, good to see you. So guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Please share the video with anybody that you think would benefit, and I look forward to continuing this conversation soon. All right, you guys, have a good night. Bye-bye.